Well, AJ, it's possible. You undisputed champion in 2027. AJ, it's undisputed champion. Heavyweight. Yes, it's possible, Шарло.
Доброго дня. Сьогодні п'ятниця, гарна погода і гарний день сказати про те, що я хочу залишити всі свої пояси, якими я сьогодні володію, зробити їх вільними, щоб хлопці, які стоять в черзі, за ними боксували. Друзі, я залишаю пояси, але я не йду зі спорту, тому що в мене є last dance. Всім хочу подякувати, з повагою відношусь до всіх організацій, хочу всім подякувати і сказати далі більше. Слава Богу за все, слава Україні.
I think he's got the Caballero decision. I think he's probably just thought, you know what, guys, go and fight for the championships, which I think is exciting. You know, I think it's obviously going to throw up a lot of new heavyweight world champions, and I think that'll be a great era for the sport. Those guys unifying against each other and seeing what's going to spit out in terms of
for Usyk, and you can say it's a duck, and quite frankly, him not fighting Ajit Kabiel is a duck if you're looking at it in terms of who was next up and he should have defended. I agree, especially after doing the Rico Verhoeven fight and then not still fighting him. I think that's a flat out.
Did Usyk just walk away from boxing's biggest prizes to help Anthony Joshua? Some are calling it a calculated move to help Joshua become undisputed. Others are calling it a straight-up duck. Either way, the story hiding behind this shocking decision is a lot bigger than most people realize.
He didn't look Usyk of old, and he probably recognizes this is maybe the time to check out. You're talking about legacy. You're talking about now he's financially secure. He'll go down in the history books as one of the greatest to ever do it. And who can argue with him? He's vacated the belts. He's had that time to think. He wants one and done, one and he's checking out. That may be a rematch with Rico Verhoeven. Who knows? But I don't think I see him boxing any of the contenders coming up. He doesn't want to damage that legacy. And you know, I think it's a good move for him at this stage.
While everyone debates Usyk's next move, Kabiel is quietly moving in. All signs right now point to Kabiel fighting for the vacant title. While fans speculate about Usyk's final fight and even a potential Jake Paul showdown gets teased, Kabiel is already being lined up for a belt and the opponent is still being decided.
Yet, but that's coming down the line. Expect Moses Atalma and Hrgovic, the winner of that, to fight for a belt next. Here's the interesting part. What about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury for a belt? If we get to those fights, right? Both guys, we have Joshua fighting in July. They say Fury's going to fight again in August or September. If those guys get through their quote-unquote warm-up fights, do we do that fight for a belt? Be a lot of people watching that one anyway, but a belt potentially on the line. There's just a lot of things to consider here, especially Usyk saying, I'm stepping in one more time. But the real question will be against who? Who will Usyk take his last fight against? A lot of people online are saying Jake Paul. Oh my goodness, could you imagine if Jake Paul gets the Usyk last?
Eddie Hearn just revealed what Usyk's final fight could actually look like. Questions are swirling about where Usyk goes from here, with Hearn floating a Rico Verhoeven rematch or a Kabiel fight as possibilities. One thing Hearn made clear, Joshua versus Fury would no longer be for a title.
I doubt it. No, I mean, they're not in line for it to be for a belt. Maybe, yeah, we'll see what happens after their fights. But I think it's an interesting move from Usyk. I think I haven't read the full stuff, but he's saying he's just going to have one more fight. Is that right? I presume that'll be the Rico rematch. I don't know. But obviously, rather than kind of have all these mandatories, I think he's got the Caballero decision. I think he's probably just thought, you know what, guys, go and fight for the championships, which I think is exciting. You know, I think it's obviously going to throw up a lot of new heavyweight world champions. And I think that'll be a great era for the sport. Those guys unifying against each other and seeing what's going to spit out in terms of champions.
You're managing Usyk. What fight would you want in terms of
Rico rematch in Amsterdam.
Anthony Joshua becoming undisputed heavyweight champion is now one step closer. This development brings Joshua's long-discussed path to undisputed champion closer than ever, with 2027 now looking like a realistic target for that moment to arrive.
It feels and smells like Zuffa. And it's a wonderful shot in the arm for them because it gives them credence and even more credibility because they don't have very much now besides Dana White's noise. They don't have elite fighters. They have fighters that are not the best in class. You know, if you're going to sign Johnny Fisher, what we're supposed to do a fanfare about that. But the bottom line is if you get Usyk in that mix, maybe you do. But I think it's morally right. I think maybe Joseph Parker scratching his head and wishing he'd done it a year ago. And Joe Parker might not have found himself in the circumstances he's in now. But look, it opens up the division. Agit Kabiel gets an opportunity to shoot for a belt quicker, and as a vacant belt, he might even get awarded it. I don't know, Spence. And then you've got perhaps Moses Atoma being able to elevate very quickly. You've got Daniel Dubois with the IBF.
which could completely reshape the heavyweight landscape.
I think he'll just go for the best deal. Really, he has said for a while he would like to include Wilder in his resume. You know, I was quite surprised. I thought he would fight Rico, but then I thought to myself, you know, he's not. There's no whatever fight Usyk's in next is not a world heavyweight championship. Maybe it's a Zuffa belt or something like that. It's just like I feel like if you're not fighting for the world heavyweight, and if it's Usyk against Rico and the world heavyweight championship's not on the line. For me, part of the selling of that fight is to say, oh, mate, if Rico wins, he becomes world heavyweight champion. That's mental. And now, but I think it's good for the division because I think you're going to see another 3 or 4 champions, which will be interesting.
Hearn just dropped another bombshell. Usyk wants Deontay Wilder after Boots, and he's defeated Zhilei Zhang. Hearn revealed that Usyk is targeting a Deontay Wilder fight. Surprisingly, no Fury clash is on the table despite Usyk previously calling it his ideal final fight. Hearn also raised the possibility of Usyk's last bout being for a Zuffa belt, a move that could completely reshape the heavyweight landscape.
Could it be against Deontay Wilder?
Thought maybe him stepping away from the belts would mean he was going to sign a 1-fight deal with Zuffa and rematch Rico Verhoeven. Either way, those fights don't need to be for belts because, well, you know what? Honestly, Rico deserves his rematch for the belt. I 1000% believe that. You fought him the first time for the WBC belt. You should fight him again in the rematch for the belt. So if the belts are no longer on the line, then it may be Jake Paul. I mean, they just now are getting back into training. I don't know what he's doing next. I don't even know what his career trajectory is now after the Anthony Joshua fight. But if you go out there and get El Spa-co'd by Anthony Joshua, get your jaw broke, what do you think you're going to do against Oleksandr Usyk? So the Jake Paul fight, probably not. They should have put the WBC belt up if they're going to do it. But Cabiel's sitting there. He deserves his shot. I understand it. But if this is, this is it for Usyk, one more fight, and we'll talk about retirement after that fight. But what a career. I applaud him for stepping aside if he wasn't going to defend the belts. I was one of those guys that was a little bit frustrated that he was fighting Rico for the belt and that Cabiel wasn't getting a shot, right? And that Daniel Dubois, he had to vacate one of the belts so Daniel Dubois and Fabio Wardley could fight for it. And then you had Joshua coming back and Moses Atama was there and just these younger guys that were going to come up and Usyk was clearly not going to fight. I was sitting here going, if you're not going to fight.
Could Usyk's last fight actually be against Jake Paul? Hearn floated the idea of a Rico Verhoeven rematch under Zuffa, believing Rico deserves his rematch with a belt on the line just like their first meeting. As for Jake Paul after what Joshua did to him, the idea of Paul stepping in with Usyk seems highly unlikely. The Jake Paul fight probably not happening. Has Usyk truly done it all, or is there one last statement left to make? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Usyk retire at the top, or is there still one final fight left in him? Like, subscribe, and stay.